Good morning, Pelham Road. Still raining outside, so I guess I'll do the last couple from here at the fireplace today. Well, I actually have a question for you. What could you talk about? Tell me in the comment section. What could you talk about for 15 minutes without any preparation? What could you talk about for 15 minutes without any preparation? Put that in the comment section below. Well, I actually don't know how today's is going to go. My slides didn't turn out the way I wanted to, and I haven't really notified Angela to prepare anything to help me with this, so I'm just going to do the best I can by holding up sheets of paper to sort of help you see what I'm talking about, because I need some visual aids on this one, okay? If we want to discuss how the Bible comes together, there are several angles worthy of consideration. One would be, well, how the authors first wrote it. A second would be, how were copies made and distributed? But the one we're making time for today is, how were the books selected? This is called the canonization process. In a bit of irony, the church, and in this case, the church leaders, end up picking the books, and the books they choose end up forming the church, kind of a circular thing. The church picks the books, and the books shape the church. The New Testament was first these oral traditions, stories passed along. Eventually, they were written down. In time, editors began to weave the stories together in books that looked like collections. Then the scrolls, or the books, were passed around and copied. Like music, some books became popular and hits with the people. Others, they could have been very good, but they were overlooked, like a lot of music. So not all good music gets heard. There were books that had the look and the feel of Scripture, but never made it into the authoritative list. Now, the list that I'm about to give you comes from The History of Christianity, written by Tim Daly. Actually, Tim is actually the editor of the book, but it's The History of Christianity. And it describes how the New Testament came together, all right? So, the first sheet of paper I want to show you is more or less, this was the New Testament, used around the time of 200, okay? As you can see that. This is what was included in the 200s. This is what the people considered authoritative, just to give you a good list, all right? See some names at the bottom you haven't heard of before, right? Wisdom of Solomon, Revelation of Peter. Well, these were used in 200, and there are roughly 25 books on this list, okay? So, about 250, you begin to see some changes, all right? You can see that many of the books are the same, all right? If it's in italics, it was on the front page, all right? But you get down here to the bottom, and you can see there's some scratches through some things, like James, and 2 John, and Jude, and the Revelation of Peter, and the Wisdom of Solomon. All of those were out by 250. But you see this one in bold, I think it's in bold that you can see it, 1 Peter, all right? So 1 Peter was added by 250. All right? Well, things continue to go. And by the 300s, this is the list, okay? Now, you can look on this list and you can see that this list is very similar to the 200 list. But the Revelation of John is on the outs by 300. So we originally started with 25 books that were authoritative, and by 300, they're only using about 200 of them, or only using about 20 of them. Now, when I say that these were the authoritative list, you understand they're not bound together in any sort of place. They are just circulated amongst the churches and considered to be authoritative, all right? Now, after 300, and the people who are picking these, like I told you, were church leaders. But by the time we get to 400, things begin to change a little bit. All right. In 397 and 418, there were two councils. Okay, these were councils at Carthage. All right. These councils closed the canon, basically. They finished this selection process. And this is your list that was the results of those two meetings, 397 and 418. You can see the gospel writers are all included. You can see the others that you're familiar with are included. You can also see that there's some new ones here at the bottom. You can see Hebrew, Jude, James, 2 Peter, 2 and 3 John, and Revelation, who had not been considered beforehand, but now they are included. And you can see that there are some well-known books, but they are also actually excluded. The Shepherd of Hermes, the Letter of Barnabas, the Revelation of Peter, the Gospel of Hebrews, and the Acts of Peter all have been removed. They did not make the cut. And so what you end up with after 418 is the 27 books that we call the New Testament. Now, just a word about what a council is. A council was often called by secular leaders to gather leading clergy together to settle disputed issues. The decision of the council were respected. These two councils, 397 and 418, were held in Carthage, and Carthage was a North African city. And while there are other councils after 418 to settle other matters, the debate over what was Scripture was finalized in 418. Now, I know you probably have to go back and look at this to pause it from time to time to see all the different ins and outs of different books. But there are at least three things of note to leave you with. The first is that the story of Jesus, included in all four Gospels, was never debated. From the first gathering in 200 to the last gathering in 418, it was included. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Second, the revelation of John was finally included, but for a while it struggled for acceptance. It gets in the final group, but it wasn't in the accepted group in the 300s. Third, the books included, all of the books that were included in 418, one of the things that they held in common is that they were the widest circulated books. Okay? In other words, you could find a copy of Galatians in Rome. You could find a copy of Galatians in Galatia. You could find a copy of Galatians in Jerusalem. And you could find a copy of Galatians in Carthage. And so the widespreadness of it is what made it acceptable as authoritative. All right. Well, it gives you something to think about. I'll see you tomorrow morning.